And joining us now from The Hague is the Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, Ambassador Ahmet Uzumcu. Ambassador, as we've just heard you say, all declared chemical weapons have left Syria. And I guess the key word there is declared, what Syria has told you it has and what it's prepared to get rid of. But do you believe that it may have weapons that it may not have declared?
Actually, the initial declaration made by Syria was very close to our estimates. We estimated that they possessed over 1,000 metric tons of chemical weapons, and they declared, in fact, 1,300 tons, and which our inspectors had verified, and they were removed, in fact, last week. And being transported to the destinations where they will be destroyed. At the same time, there have been some questions that we raised with the Syrians, and this is a process which is underway in order to clarify some aspects of the declaration. This doesn't mean that the Syrians continue to possess significant amounts of chemical weapons or so, but this is rather aimed at, in fact, assuring our membership and the international community at large that the Syrians have declared everything they possessed. So before concluding this process, I wouldn't be able to confirm or deny anything. But in any case, the whole regime of the Chemical Weapons Convention functions on the basis of declarations. That has been the practice in the past, and it will continue to be the practice.
Okay, as you've pointed out, questions remain, but are you satisfied that Syria has complied with all the terms of that agreement that was brokered by Russia and the United States about 9 months ago for it to get rid of all its chemical weapons?
What I could say at this stage is that the decisions made by the Executive Council of the OPCW and the United Nations Security Council have not yet been fully implemented. There is also the question of production facilities, which is not yet final. We need a decision by the Executive Council, and the destruction will have to follow it up.
Right, so it's an ongoing process. At this stage, you cannot say that Syria is free of all chemical weapons.
It would be very difficult for the Secretariat of the OPCW to declare any state party as free of chemical weapons. So they have to declare what they possess. We have to verify what they will destroy, and this is underway, in fact, in other member states. But there is also a mechanism of inspection, challenge inspection, which may be invoked by any other state party in case of suspicions on the activities of other countries. Therefore, this mechanism, of course, would apply also to Syria if other state parties did have questions on the continued presence of chemical weapons in this country.
Okay, now those factories and facilities where the chemical weapons were manufactured, are they still intact? And if they are, what's going to be done about them?
All equipment, in fact, which were existing in those factories, production facilities, have been destroyed under the verification of our inspectors. But the structures will have to be destroyed as well, according to the provisions of our convention. And in order to do that, a decision by our policymaking organs is required. And I hope that a decision can be made at the upcoming meeting of the Executive Council next week. If there is an agreement, then the destruction activities will follow it up under the verification of our inspectors again.
Okay, how cooperative was Syria in this process?
As I said, on many occasions, there have been some delays in the implementation of decisions, initially due to technical reasons. Later, there were security reasons, and we urged, in fact, the Syrian government to make every effort to comply with its obligations. In the end, everything declared is removed. I think we can say that the cooperation of the Syrian government has been satisfactory.
Okay, now the mission into Syria was led by the Dutch diplomat Sigrid Kaags. How difficult was her job, the process of finding, storing, and then moving these chemicals?
Actually, her job was, in fact, coordinating the joint OPCW UN joint mission, which is established last year in October. We had some staff from the OPCW, the UN had some staff, and she coordinated, in fact, the activities of this mission. The OPCW staff were in charge of technical matters, verification matters. The UN staff, in fact, provided logistical and security support. And this cooperation, which was which wasn't without any precedent, in fact, did function quite well. I think all of those staff who were deployed in Syria did work in a very challenging environment, especially with regard to their safety and security.
Right, and how much help did you get from other countries? In fact, Ms. Kaags herself said that there was help from Iran.
You know, in general, this was, again, an unprecedented international undertaking with the support and participation of more than 30 countries. There have been countries like United States and the Russian Federation that provided, in fact, large amounts of equipment and material, other in-kind contribution. The U.S. is now going to start soon the destruction on a ship. Also countries like China, Denmark, and Norway that provide ships either for protection or for transportation of the chemical materials. Others provided either in-kind contribution or financial contributions. So this is really something which is very exemplary and which we should all welcome. In fact, this was a multilateralism in action, a good example of effective multilateralism which should be emulated in the future too.
Okay, what about chlorine gas? As far as I understand it, chlorine gas is not covered under the Chemical Weapons Convention and therefore wasn't included in this particular agreement. Do you know if Syria has stocks of chlorine gas? How much do they have, and whether they've used these stocks?
Actually, chlorine, as you mentioned, in fact, is not a declarable chemical substance. Therefore, we don't know how much is, in fact, stocked in Syria. But in every country, the chlorine is being used, in fact, on a daily basis for different purposes, civilian purposes. But from our perspective, in fact, we were very serious in trying to find facts surrounding those allegations of use of chlorine. Chlorine is not considered as a chemical weapon per se, but if it is used, in fact, it applies to every chemical substance. If they are used to harm people or environment, according to our convention, they would be considered as chemical weapon. Therefore, if they were proved, we would treat them and consider them as a violation of the Chemical Weapons Convention.
Right, and now that all the declared chemical weapons have been moved and they're in the process of being destroyed, does the OPCW have the right now to conduct any kind of intrusive inspections, investigations into whether Syria may be hiding weapons?
This is a mechanism which may be invoked by state parties. Clearly, those state parties which may have such suspicions will need to raise it with me, with the Director General, so that I can consider, in fact, conducting such an inspection. And of course, these suspicions will have to be substantiated and supported by some information.
And under the terms of the agreement, Syria is prohibited from developing chemical weapons in the future. Is there some kind of policing mechanism to make sure that it does comply with that?
This is, in fact, valid for all countries, and all member countries, 190 of them, have the obligation not to develop, produce, and stockpile any chemical weapon. We have some routine inspections, in fact, to chemical industrial plants in order to find out whether they comply with the provisions of the convention and whether they do what they declared. and Syria will also be subject to such a verification regime. But if there are, again, some question marks about activities which may be prohibited by the Convention, then the challenge inspection will have to be invoked.
Ambassador, for you and your organization, this is a significant achievement. What kind of precedent does it set?
It does set an important precedent for my organization, in fact. This was a collective success of our states parties and the international community at large. I think it is a very good example for the multilateral disarmament. But also in general terms, I think this is a very important achievement for the international community. So if, when there is a will, in fact, the states parties do contribute and do act with determination and resolve, and there is a great chance of success in such cases.
Ambassador Ahmet Uzumcu, thank you for joining us, sir. Thanks for your time.